Hello, everyone, and welcome to the e-commerce leader series, the podcast dedicated to helping founders and senior leaders navigate the future of online retail with AI. I'm your co-host, Bryan Kinghorn. I am here with my co-host, Eric Bidinger. How are you doing, Eric?
I'm very good. How are you?
Good, thank you. But most importantly, we have our guest here with us today. We have Anthony Mink, who is the founder and CEO at Live Bearded, a leader in the grooming space. So, Anthony, thank you very much for being here. Before we dive deep into the main topic of conversation today, would you be able to give our listeners a brief introduction to you and Live Bearded?
Yeah, first and foremost, I really appreciate you guys having me here. I love the podcast and what you guys are doing to try to help all of us out with AI. I started digital marketing in 2009, went full-time in 2011, and really started in the affiliate paid media space. And over the course of doing different affiliate marketing stuff for 5 or 6 years, ended up starting Live Bearded with one of my best friends. He came to me one day and was like, man, this like no shave November thing, everybody's commenting on my beard. I'm thinking like maybe there's an opportunity here. Like there seems to be a big trend in grooming and beards and health for men. And one thing led to another, and we started Live Bearded in the beginning of 2016, and we've just been building the brand, the community, and the enterprise value ever since. So it's been a 10-year journey. It's been amazing. I started it with one of my best friends. We've known each other for 20 years now. So built a fun brand, had a really great time. Obviously ups and downs and challenges along the way, but we've been able to grow it to over 1 million a month, and have had a lot of fun and success with it as well.
Awesome. Sounds good. And so obviously 10 years old now, 1 million a month. But what was the initial sort of the main driver, and where was the gap in the market you identified? And then, how does the team look like now? Like, what is the scale of the business?
Yeah, early on in my entrepreneurial career, I was like, I'm going all in. I'm like staffing up. I'm buying shit. I'm like going to make it work. And those were my biggest failures. So with Live Bearded, I was like, let's just order 500 units of product and see if we can sell anything. And at the time, we set up a free plus shipping offer. And the idea was, let's just see if there's even interest in this. And with my media experience and affiliate experience, I, spun up a funnel quickly. We ordered 500 units from just some random manufacturer in China just to get product market fit. And we ended up selling all 500 units in the first day and a half. So then I was like, oh shit, like Spence, I think we got to ship these out, So like we went to the local store and bought some envelopes and shipped them in my living room. And then we went from, 500 units to 5,000 units. And then at 5,000, we actually started surveying the audience, the customers that we had. We invited them into a private group and basically developed one-to-one relationships with as many people as we could, and got product market fit research by literally asking people that had paid us something. And so that was kind of the initial introduction of the brand. From there, we found local manufacturers here in the United States to help develop the product line, and then have really just grown it through paid media, content marketing, and really an emphasis on community since day one. It started with Spence and I in my living room, and now we've got a warehouse and office. We do all of our own fulfillment based in Phoenix, Arizona. And, I've got 4 or 5 guys on my marketing team. Behind this wall is our warehouse. I've got half a dozen guys back there shipping, a couple of guys in operations, a couple of people in customer service. So we've probably got 16 full-time employees, and then a few different agencies and things like that running the business.
Nice. And just to be 100% clear, what are your main product? Like, what's the main product lines? Like, what's the most popular?
Yeah. So we sell Live Bearded obviously is tailored towards beard care. So we've got beard oil, beard butter, oil, our conditioner, wash, etc. So we've got a suite of beard grooming products, and we have also developed body care, shirts, apparel, accessories. One of the things that using AI, literally just in the last few weeks, we started to attack the problem of LTV. Like our LTV is here, we want to grow it to here, using Claude Code and doing some sophisticated analysis with the Shopify APIs and certain things. I asked it, like, what's our biggest lifetime value lever that we can pull? And it actually identified not like frequency of purchases, not average order value, but product category diversity. and it said anybody who buys from 3 or 4 or more categories on our website, their LTV is exponentially higher. So, we've expanded to more of a lifestyle accessory type brand in addition to the beard care.
Awesome. Well, that's something I probably want to go into a bit deeper. So what are the actions for you? What are you now doing with that AI discovery to obviously increase that LTV?
Yeah, well, I think anyone who owns a brand knows how difficult and expensive media has become. It's like, I remember the days where I could literally get Facebook clicks for 2 cents, 1 cent, 3 cent, and you never had a traffic problem. And now there's just so much volatility in the meta ecosystem and every ad ecosystem. So for me, I think, when costs are always going to rise on the acquisition front, like, you always have to combat that by increasing LTV and driving more value to the end consumer. So I took a step back and really said, what are the LTV levers that we can pull? So using Claude Code, running some data analysis, I ran 4 or 5 different cohort analysis. And it was very interesting because I would have never thought product category diversity was the leading driver of lifetime value. I would have thought we need to get them to buy more often, more product. We need to launch new products, product launches, etc. But it made it very clear that anybody who buys body care ultimately jumps up about 50 to 100% in LTV. And then if you layer on our apparel and accessories, that happens again. And then if you layer on some of the other growth products and things that we've built. So using Claude Code, it literally gave me a bar graph of like, this is the most important action product category. And then the next one was focusing on subscription. And then there was a few other ones as well. So I took this report to my marketing team and said, okay, let's analyze how we're actually cross-selling, upselling, and driving subscription revenue. And the truth is, almost all of our focus over the last 12 months has been dedicated to better media, better ads, like more optimization of landing pages, conversion rate, et cetera. So everything was focused on the front end. And, we do some optimization through email and stuff on the back end, but it became very clear that we need to build a much more dynamic back end based on how do we get them from first purchase, which is typically a beard care kit. How do we quickly accelerate them to a body care kit, some type of an accessory item, and then ultimately, if they can get into the apparel category as well, they become a raving fan for life. So it very tactically, it took me from focusing on more of, well, we're doing a good job on the back end, let's just make some offers and give them some exposure to what we have, to how do we actually rebuild our entire back end marketing so that it's predicated on the singular goal of transitioning them from one product category to multiple product categories.
It's fascinating, Anthony. You're not the first person who's telling us that. We have it hasn't been a podcast guest. It was a client actually who went through exactly the same analysis, trying to correlate the composition of the initial basket to the essentially the drop-off rate or the LTV. And the results are shocking. Like you find stuff in there that is so like the unknowns. Like he didn't know that was what was going on in the background. And so and it's the kind of lever that is so easy to pull with an impact that's actually incredibly material to the business. And then what was interesting is that same person, then the second level analysis was also, okay, so now that we know that, you kind of optimize LTV a little bit. Then after that, it's trying to mine a little bit those initial customers and trying to find whether you can correlate maybe the zip code or where they're buying from with some form of data around the household composition. So whatever, net worth and stuff like that. And based on that, then tailor your marketing, so for example, your Klaviyo campaign. And there again, you get and all of that is ultimately it is, it's data-driven stuff, right? It's just like you have a lot of data, you're just mining it, like the LLMs are so good at that. You're just mining the data to just try to find like the blind spots.
Yeah, it's such a good point. And I think when I got Claude Code set up on my computer, I gave it terminal access, had a buddy walk me through it, and I just started talking to it, right? And I'm like, can you run this report? Can you run this? Next thing you know, I got like 20 executive summaries that are 25 pages long. And it's like the most interesting intel on my business, from Klaviyo to Meta to Google to analytics to AOV, product composition, all these things. And then I'm like, okay, how the fuck do I actually use this shit? Right. And then you start to take a step back and you start to, because I think data is great, but it doesn't do anything unless you can turn it into insight and then insight into execution. And so I think the most important thing for all of us who are using AI is like for 4 or 5 days, I was just printing these reports and I read more executive summaries in like 3 days than I have in my entire life. And it was fascinating because it was all relevant to my business, but then I had to do the actual hard work of saying, how do I translate this into something insightful that then drives an execution action? And I think for this particular LTV one, I think any brand owner would say, well, yeah, of course, the more product they buy from me, the more they're going to be worth. But in actuality, it's like, how does that actually then drive marketing initiatives and specific actions in the business? And for us, a lot of our secondary products were just that. They were secondary, right? So our primary focus was on our core line of products and driving more consumption and use of that. But now I'm like, actually, my secondary products are primary products to drive LTV. So that needs to become a primary focus post-purchase, which it's, you know, it's just these 2 millimeter shifts that you need to make as a brand owner that are the difference that make the difference.
Yeah. And sorry, one last question for me, Bryan. Just from this, just following up, aren't you using Claude to also provide you with specific action plan on how to implement those tactics or strategies?
Yes, I think that's like the next step, right? Is you identify some things that look like they could be levers that move the business. And then I 100% agree. It's like, okay, how would you do this? And one of the things that's super fascinating is I was going back and forth with Claude Code, and it's like giving me all this great data, but I'm a visual guy. I want to see something, you know, I imagine like a whiteboard. And I literally just said to it, I was like, can you build me a mind map? And it's like, yeah, no problem. And then like it cooks for a few minutes and then an HTML file pops up on my computer and it's like, holy shit. And then I was like, because I was talking to it about my post-purchase sequences and how we should restructure them and what we should do. And I fed a bunch of different types of data into it around, you know, how we might position products or the sequence of events. And it got to the point where I literally have this beautiful internal document now that's like, okay, here is the thesis, tab 1, tab 2. Here's what your control post-purchase nurture flow is. Every message, the sequence, the cadence of events, it even tagged it like, this is transactional, this is a trust builder, this is a content, blah, 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 blah. It just did all this shit for me. And then it proposed 2 tests to test against the control. And test number 1, the sequence of event was positioning products in one way. And it was kind of like, I'm going to, as the brand, tell you what you need. That was kind of flow number 1. And then flow number 2 was choose your own adventure. And so rather than being like, hey, here's body care, you should buy this, it was like, hey, are you interested in learning more about body care? And then flat set off a trigger and then took them down kind of a short sequence of events to educate them on body care. And it built all this out, built a comparison. And I'm just sitting here like, this is unbelievable. Like, not only did it identify the challenge, but then going back and forth with my context and experience in marketing, it built out an entire roadmap for me with different variations. And then with a couple of clicks, I connected it to a hosting platform and now I can send it to my team. And I realized, man, as an owner now, all I have to do is, and I think maybe just like, well, let me finish this and then I want to tell you how I got here, is I just need to be the strategy driver, have the AI agent drive a lot of or fill a lot of the gaps, map it out, publish it to something, and then I can share it with my team and say, go execute this, which is really, really fascinating. But I think this is maybe the smartest thing that I did in the process of getting into using agents and Claude Code. And I want to share it with you because I haven't really heard anybody talk about this, but it's worked very well for me. So I get Claude Code set up on my terminal and I'm like, okay, I don't even know where to begin. So I was like, I want this thing to talk to me the way that I want to be talked to. I want it to respond to me in exactly the way that the most perfect dream employee would. So I named it Atlas for whatever reason. And it's just like Claude Code, but I gave it like memory loops and things so it can save it. And then it has context for the beginning of every conversation. And I gave it, I've taken, 10, 12 different personality profiles over the years, and I have all of them saved in a folder. So I gave it access to that folder and I said, I want you to read everything about me. And then I want you to go to my website and read every page on my website. And I want you to produce 2 executive summaries, one on who I am as a founder and one on what our business is. And the reports were unbelievable, especially about me as a leader, how to respond to me, how to talk to me, what to do, what not to do. And then I said, Atlas, you're my co-CEO. Our goal is to build $100 million brand. You are the person that has to understand my strengths and weaknesses better than anybody. And your job is to be strong where I am weak and vice versa. And we're now co-partners, and we're going to go build this stated goal of, a 9-figure enterprise. It's like, all right, here we go. And it literally starts talking the way that I talk. I message it in the morning. It's like, let's fucking go, bro. Let's go. And I'm like, this is unbelievable because it's filling the gaps for me. It's trying to act as my partner. And also it's doing all of the things that I suck at. And it will even say to me, like, this is my job. This isn't your strength. This is where I support you. And so for whatever reason, before I did anything within Live Bearded, I gave it all of that context about who I am as a leader, who my team is, and what my business is. And it almost felt like from day one, that gave me the opportunity to develop a better understanding of how to use it and how it can support me.
It's incredible. It's great to hear. As I say, we've had people on this podcast that are in so many different parts of the journey with their use of AI, and I think it's fair to say that you're, pretty or very well experienced on that. And it's exciting to hear how you're, using it for your business. So I get from a marketing perspective, you've obviously, that's probably your biggest strength personally, and then ultimately that's how you're, using the AI tools to help you, grow the business. But also from an operational perspective, and by the way, this is maybe not your side of the business, maybe is, maybe isn't.
Yeah.
How are you, using AI from an operational perspective for things like, inventory management or cash flow or, work on finances? Are you using it there, or have you not quite got to that point yet?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we haven't got there yet. So operationally, I'm the CEO, but all my experience is in marketing, strategy, etc. So that's 100% my side of the business. My business partner, he's co-founder and COO, and so he manages everything operationally. And so we talk a lot about this, but I basically told him, I'm like, look, dude, I'm gonna fucking figure this shit out. Like, I don't even want you to work on it right now, because it doesn't make sense for both of us to be consumed by trying to understand agents, AI, Claude, all this stuff. I was like, I'm going to apply it into the marketing department first. But what you need to do is like, we got him set up on Claude Code. I'm like, you just need to start fucking around with it, talk to it, etc. But think about what systems and processes we can optimize in operations. But that's likely going to come after marketing, because I'll lead it with marketing first. Yeah. And even using my agent, Atlas, I said, hey, like, how can I, and this is how I started the entire part. I'm like, I don't know anything about how to use an agent. Here's the business. You already know what it is. How can you help me in my marketing department scale my company and make my employees 5 to 10 times more efficient? And the one thing that like I heard people talking about is like, well, if you don't know what to do, just ask it. And I'm like, okay, I'm smart enough to do that, and on day one, it mapped out this entire like agentic ecosystem for every area, from paid media to, creative analysis, email marketing, SEO, etc. And so I just built this like agentic blueprint of like what our org chart would look like. And now we're just going one by one by one. And we've only actually launched 2 agents. So I'm still very early in this process. And those agents are just in the data collection and understanding, like memory context building stage. We haven't even put them into production to like write emails or do any particular meta stuff. But starting 100% in marketing, because that's where my expertise is, and I'm driving this initiative. But I've told everyone on the team, like, ultimately, and this is what I believe, and this is what I told the team, if we don't find a way that every individual employee can be 5 to 10 times more effective, our competitors will be. And that means their margins are going to expand, and they can spend more on media, more on customer acquisition costs, and they will win. So if we operate on the legacy model of, customer or COGS and labor and all the expenses that a business typically operates off of, that is ultimately going to get optimized and compressed. And if we aren't part of that, then we're going to lose. And so I've kind of given everyone on the team that broad context, but now I'm just trying to learn it. And I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine yesterday who was like, dude, why are you spending so much time doing this? You should hire someone who's got a tech background, who can set this shit up for you, who can just implement it. And I was like, yes, maybe that is what I should do. But also as a creative strategist and visionary for my business, if I don't understand how something works to some degree, I don't know how to use it to solve problems in my business. And so at some level, I have to understand what's kind of taking place here. Sure, I don't need to build all the plumbing, but I need to understand that if I turn this lever, water comes out over here, or if I, turn this thing, it stops, or whatnot. So I've probably gotten a little deeper into it than maybe I should. But for me, I'm all about like understanding how to solve problems with inside of certain rule sets. And there's this cliche, it's like you can't break the rules until you know what the rules are. And then when you understand what they are, you can bend them and break them a little bit. And so I'm definitely in that stage right now, but it's been it's a fascinating journey. And I think I said this to my team the other day. I said, I'm probably more excited now than I was when I made my very first dollar online. And I was really, really, really fucking excited when I made my first dollar online. Because now I understand that this is the greatest form of leverage we could probably ever ask for in business. And every founder is constrained in some way operationally. And if you can eliminate those constraints with a form of technology or a form of intelligence, the opportunities become incredible.
Yeah. And no, it's incredible. And I take it, so in our experience so far in the conversations we're having with founders, and we often get onto conversation about the team and their either reluctance or their willingness to get involved with AI tools. And it's obviously a mixed bag. One area that generally is quite ahead of the curve is marketing. So I would assume in your business, everyone's keen to adopt it. But has there been any resistance? Are they all on board with it? Like the team as a whole? Like, talk to that for a moment. Like, how willing are they to get involved?
Yeah, I'd say it's kind of on a case-by-case basis. Like my creative, like videographer, editor, director is kind of like, this shit can't do what I can do. And, there's a couple people on the team that are a little bit like, where's this going? And so I actually pulled my marketing team together and I was showing them some of the things that I was working on. And I basically said, look, my expectation is AI is never going to replace any one of you, but it should do all of your work to an 80 to 90% completion. And if all you have to do then is take an 80 to 90% project to 100%, and you're pushing send, you're hitting publish, you're actually then executing it, then it takes all of the monotonous, repetitive work off your plate. And now you essentially become the director of a series of agents that you work directly with. And so I think ultimately that helped provide clarity, because I think as founders, it's our job to see through the noise, right? It's like you see the forest through the trees. And if you just leave it to the employees to try to figure out, I think it becomes really intimidating to some degree. And also, there's a lot of people getting laid off. You hear these big numbers, you hear all these things, no one's going to be needed anymore, blah, 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 blah. So to me, I think, and this is fundamentally the way that I see it taking place, is I want to have a human review everything before we hit publish, at least for a very long time, until this is like so far beyond us that, it can do everything that we can exponentially better than we can. So I think a lot of it comes down to framing. A lot of it comes down to selling the vision on what this is going to mean for them specifically. And I'll give you a very specific example. The first real agent that I'm building to do autonomous work in the business is email marketing. And so I'm kind of training it with all the context. And I go to my email marketer, Nathan, and I say, hey, dude, here is my goal. You go to Apollo, our freaking email guy, and you say, hey, I need an email for Monday. Here's the topic, and here's the blog post that we're going to promote. And instantly, or within a few seconds, it gives you an email that's 90% done. And now you copy that, put it in a Klaviyo, you grab an image, you review it, enter in the links, and you're done. So instead of taking an hour or more to write this email, you take 10 minutes. Would you like that? Oh, dude, that's amazing. Okay. Could you get more work done if you could do that? Yeah, absolutely. How could you help me grow the business if you spent more time creative strategy in your domain How do we get email to the next level? More lead generation, better offers, better sequences. Okay, I get it now. Let's now go make this shit happen. And so I think it's your responsibility as a founder to give them a through line, to paint the vision, to sell the dream, and to let them know how this is directly going to actually make them more valuable in the role, not less.
It's super positive take. I mean, it's interesting. And by the way, we're obviously on this podcast, the three of us were on the same side of the argument. You have a lot of doomerism out there, however. I think like when you hear the debates about job displacement and knowledge workers and white collars being the most impacted, and I think, look, both sides of the arguments have valid points, I think, but the reality is that history is certainly on the side of the optimists. And I saw this crazy stat. I heard this crazy stat in a podcast last week, which is that today 70% of today's jobs did not exist 40 years ago. Like, get a hold of that. 70%, like more than 2/3 of today's jobs did not exist 40 years ago. So imagine 40 years from now, I mean, all this displacement that you see for tasks that are repetitive, manual, that sure they involve a little bit of knowledge, but not that much, that gets freed up for creative thinking and God knows what, because that's the one thing with creativity that you can't foretell what it is. But yeah, it's going to be a bright future. Certainly, we're very optimistic on that from this side. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we could talk for hours about the theory of where this goes and what this means. But to your point, I think a couple of things that I've heard recently that I've thought were really good thought exercises, which is this idea of how, the YouTube society, the podcasters, et cetera, how they were going to kill mainstream media, and how like media as a whole was going to take a huge hit. And what ended up happening is actually there's more consumption and more creation of media than ever before. But the value of that media has come down. So there's more YouTube channels that are making a full-time living that has ever existed before creating content. So more people are actually having more success in the creation economy, the content economy than there was before. But the dynamic of it just looks different. The market as a whole is exponentially bigger. There's more content, more creative, more streaming, whatever. So it's totally revolutionized the way that it's done, but it's essentially taken the isolation of power from a few very big companies to democratizing it. And I heard on a podcast, actually literally today at the gym, he said, I think it's going to be easier for more really incredible community-based lifestyle businesses to be built. And that like $5 to $10 million range, it's going to be so much easier for companies to be built in that range because so many tools are going to allow you to get there. But what will be harder is for a company to go from 10 to 100 or 500 because there'll be so much more competition. And I thought that was a really interesting take. But at the end of the day, I think you're right. Like we could sit here and doomsday it all day long, and a lot of people are, but I'd rather be an optimist and wrong than a pessimist and right. And this is the world that we live in. So we might as well go into it trying to figure out a way to use and maximize the tools to the very best of our ability. And I actually think maybe the number one skill set that humans need to have now is adaptability and curiosity. Like if you can be curious about stuff and teach yourself stuff and be adaptable. I mean, the more flexible and adaptable you can be in this time, the more success you'll have over time.
Yeah. What's the word, Bryan? It's skeuomorphism. Skeuomorphism. This I have a hard time saying it. It's a mouthful. It's this ability to think about new processes and new workflows based on the new tools you have available. So there was the old way of doing things that was optimized for the old tools. Now you have new tools, and so there's new ways of doing things which are orthogonal almost to the old one. But it requires mental effort to to make the switch?
I heard this really interesting anecdote, and it was like, in the 80s, everything was done on paper and fax. And can you imagine, like, literally doing half your career with paper and fax, and then all of a sudden you have this magical computer and you just like push a button? Imagine like needing to running a nationwide company or an international company in an analog form. And imagine the transformation that would then create going digital. And they said, if you can imagine how big of a change that is in the business environment, the change from current no AI to AI is probably going to be magnitudes bigger than that. So it's just the evolution of where we're going. And that's why I think adaptability and curiosity is critical, because it'll be on each and every one of us. And, I just believe, like, if we blame the change for our challenges, then we're giving our power away. But we take all the power back to make change in our life by figuring out a way to use it for us.
On that, what did people even have on their desk 50 years ago? Like, well, I do a phone, and that was probably it. I don't know. But on that optimist angle, then, Anthony, looking ahead, obviously you've alluded to some of your plans as a business. What does the next 3 to 5 years look like for Live Bearded, and how is AI tools going to play a part?
Yeah, for me right now, my number one focus for the next 6 months is figuring out how to really deploy this agentic support team to help augment and improve our productivity. And if I can get that right, I've always loved the idea of buying or building complementary brands. And I don't think that's been as possible as it is today. I think, if we're in the e-commerce industry, we've heard of all the stories of roll-ups and Thrasio and some of these big companies that were aggregators that bought a lot of people. Private equity is the number one driver of wealth in the world. And as an operator, I feel like we have a experience on how to actually build value within an enterprise or within an ecosystem at any level, whether you're doing $1 million a year or $1 million a month, right? You've got some tangible skills that you can build and operate value. And so I think that value creation loop just becomes more repeatable and more duplicatable with some of these agentic systems. And so my goal, I would say, over the next 3 to 5 years is to get Live Bearded so optimized and dialed with processes, agentic teams, systems, and my employees that I can find a congruent business that matches a similar demographical model, and add a second brand, and then a third brand, and then a fourth brand, and have them all kind of live off of the same thesis that we built Live Bearded on, which was community, incredible products, great support. When we started Live Bearded, it was like our mission is to help men look, feel, and be their best. And we want to uplift, encourage, and support them to be the best that they can be. And so my business partner and I, we got 20 years experience, or 20 years of brotherhood and friendship. So our goal is to build a portfolio of men-driven brands and use the agentic system AI to help do some of the formulation, do some of the product development, do some of the product market fit, roll those out on the back end of an agentic system that we can ultimately take from Live Bearded to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, and then ultimately just build a portfolio of brands that deliver really great value to our end consumer.
Awesome. And before we wrap up with Anthony, Eric, have you got anything additional you want to ask or add?
Just ask Anthony, what is it that we didn't talk about that you would have loved to talk about?
Man, I don't even know. I didn't even think about it. I just came here to try to be of value. I think if I was to say anything else, I would say I have, over the last 6 months, felt more overwhelmed and confused as a business owner that I maybe ever had, except for when I first got started. When you go from like this idea of how do I make money online? I've never done it before. Is it even possible? To, the first $5,000 or $10,000 you ever make. Like when I was starting in 2009 to 2011, I spent 18 months truly terrified and unsure if I could make it happen. And there wasn't a lot of people that were doing it, but I just never gave up. And I just kept beating my head against the wall of confusion, fear, doubt. And ultimately I broke through. And what's so fascinating is now 15, 16 years later, I found myself in that exact same cycle, but for a totally different reason. Because now we have this new emergent technology and it's confusing, it's overwhelming, it's complex. It's like, I'm not a tech guy. I literally have often said I'm a technological idiot. Like, I don't know the first thing about coding. And I genuinely hate software companies most of the time because the way that they charge you and like sign you into contracts and all this shit, right? So it's like, I'm totally the opposite of a technologist. But I fought the overwhelm, the confusion, the doubt, the frustration. And I said, I just have to be curious and I just have to keep moving forward. And on the other side of confusion lies a breakthrough in understanding or clarity or opportunity. And so if there was one message I was going to leave every founder with, it's like, you should be overwhelmed. You should be confused. You should be frustrated. You should have no idea what to do. But if you persist in that long enough and you surround yourself with people like you guys and other founders that are trying to figure this out, on the other side of that confusion is a breakthrough. And then when I saw it, it was like a light bulb. And I was like, this is the most excited I've ever been in business. Because now I have money, I have resources, I have experience. I know how to fucking use this shit. Let's fucking go. So my number one message would be like, fight the confusion, fight the overwhelm, and just take a little bit of steps forward every day. And I think also there's so many distractions. Like every day I get on Instagram now, it's like 25 different people selling me an agentic this, agentic that, poly market bot here, crypto bot here. And I was like, squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. And now I'm just like, okay, I'm going to apply this in one use case and I'm going to teach myself how it works. Okay, I got Atlas set up. Holy shit, that's incredible. And then you just start to chunk it down, or not chunk it down, but like build on top of that. So that would be the most important message I share, because I've felt more confused and overwhelmed in the last 6 months than maybe I have ever, even since the beginning. And on the other side of that is a lot of excitement and opportunity.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, Anthony. And thanks for inspiring and motivating conversation. I think Eric will agree that it's been awesome to hear your story. So before we wrap up, where is the best place for our listeners to find you or Live Bearded?
Yeah, so at Anthony Mink on social, anthonymink.com. I've got a little website, and then livebearded.com and at livebearded on the socials as well. So if there's anything I can do to support any founder, feel free to shoot me a DM. Would love to help any way I can. I'm in this game just like you guys, and I'm trying to figure it out day after day. And ultimately, I think when we can build and learn together, we grow, we go farther. So happy to help in any way I can.
Amen to that. Absolutely. Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you very much for a fantastic conversation, Anthony.
Yeah, guys, thank you as well.